Hey, welcome to Monday. I hope you all had a good weekend. We're going to go through a bunch of stuff like normal, but there's a lot to get through, so we're going to buzz through this pretty quick. To introduce myself, my name is Tom Carnell. I was a buyer for Tower Records and Warehouse and the Record Factory for a couple of decades. I published Carpet Noctem and wrote most of it. It was a dark art journal available in the 90s. And I wrote for Fangoria and Dread Central for about nearly 20 years. Right now I'm an author. You can go to my author page. You can find a whole bunch of stuff that there. Be sure to check out the description of this video down there. I have links to all of the music and sort of a outline of what we're going to go over. Remember, this video is done with no edits, no cuts, no AI, just a stream of consciousness. I have a couple of notes, and stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to give away a secret website that you'll be very interested in checking out. If you have any product or anything you want to talk to me about, you can email me at tomcarnell@gmail.com and head over to Buy Me a Coffee if you want to buy me a coffee. We're going to start, as usual, with movies. I got a few recommendations here. Most of these, all of these, in fact, I think are readily available. We're going to start with a film from 1987. It's available on TUBI under the name STAGEFRIGHT, aka DELIRIA, aka AQUARIUS. It's Mikhail Swaby, who used to be the director of photography for Dario Argento. He also did a movie that people know of called Della Morte Dell'Amore, or aka Cemetery Man. He also did his other films, The Sect and The Church, are also worth checking out. This stars David Brandon as kind of a snippy director of a stage play. And it also stars the great Giovanni Lombardo Radici, who was in things like City of the Living Dead, aka Gates of Hell. He was in Cannibal Ferox. He was also in The Church and The Sect. You can go to my website at tomcarnell.com. One of the episodes of my old podcast, the bonus material, has an interview with him that we did in the middle of the night. He was in Italy and we were here in Washington, and it's pretty interesting. The film is about a cast and crew of an upcoming sort of avant-garde play. They're doing rehearsals, and the director is being a little Napoleon, as it were. And then inadvertently, a killer nearby gets loose from a mental hospital and comes inside, and laughs ensue. The film was written by George Eastman. If that name sounds familiar, he was starred in a movie called Anthropophagus. He was also in 1990, The Bronx Warriors, and he was also in Erotic Nights of the Living Dead. Big guy, and usually played a lot of heavies. This is a well-directed killer in the house film. The acting is so-so, but the staging of the murders are pretty inventive, and Swaby ratchets up a really tight pace. It's highly recommended. Once again, it is on Tubi. Following that, 1967, a German film, Der Monch mit der PEITSCHE, I'm going to butcher that, aka The Monk with the Whip, aka The College Girl Murders. It is also available on Tubi. It's a German krimi film, which I might have spoken about before. Krimis were sort of murder mysteries, sometimes what they used to call drawing room mysteries, where murders start happening and the police come in and it's like, I've gathered you all today to reveal the killer. And in this, the police try to track down a hooded serial killer who murders his victims with a combination of acid and poison gas. It stars directed by Alfred Vorer, stars Joachim Fuchsberger and Uschi Glass. It's a silly but likable krimi. Now, remember, I've spoken about this before. Krimis were sort of a passing phase as this concept went from film noir in the 40s and the 50s. Early 1960s, the Germans took it over for the krimi films. There's a lot of them, mostly in black and white, mostly based on Edgar G. Wallace books and short stories. And then that sort of drifted into Italy for the Italian Giallo, and then that went to Spain for the Spanish giallo. Ultimately, that was all through the 70s, ultimately finding its way to American shores as the American slasher in the 80s with things like Halloween and that kind of thing. A lot of that first-person POV that you see in Halloween was stolen directly from Italian, Spanish giallos and krimi films. As with most krimis, it is a little stagey, but it's good. It's an engaging mystery, and it's told well, and it looks nice. Joachim Fuchsberger, the main actor, starred in 13 Edgar Wallace adaptations and was the first German ambassador to UNICEF in 1984, and he was the stadium announcer in the 1972 Olympics. Following that, this one, as before, I talked about Aftermath and a Serbian film. This is a new film from 2022. It's available now on TUBI. It's called La Mesita del Comedor, aka The Coffee Table, directed by Kay Cassis, starring Josep Vieira and David Perea. Boy, this one comes with a warning. I don't want to give too much away, but it's something. The synopsis is fairly short. A married couple purchase a coffee table. All I'll say about this is it is shocking. Parents will have a tough time with some of this, but much like the films of Alex de la Iglesia, who did things like Acción Mutante, El Dia de la Bestia, Witching and Bitching, that kind of a thing. There's comedy involved in the most grimmest of circumstances. And boy, it is unlike, I say that periodically, it's unlike anything you've ever seen. The Coffee Table is unlike anything you've ever seen. It has a dark streak a mile wide. I do recommend it, but go in prepared. That's all I'll say. After that, I should say, 1961, an old creature feature film called Mr. Sardonicus. I highly recommend this one as well. I loved this movie as a kid. It scared the pants off me. It's about a mysterious, cruel baron whose face has become frozen in a horrifying grin, and he demands a prominent London physician to apply some experimental treatments to restore his face. Stars Oscar Homolka, Ronald Lewis, directed and produced by the great William Castle. Old school, black and white. It was famous for having this punishment poll where Castle would interrupt the film as it was playing and vote amongst the audience. You know, should we let him off the hook? Should we let the bad guy off the hook? Or should we punish him? The interesting thing was, within that context, he's counting the people in the theater. Of course, no let him off the hook ending was ever shot. And it's just a good time find. It's creepy. It has an interesting premise and well worth checking out. I was lucky enough when I worked for Dread Central. They were doing a William Castle retrospective in New York. And I interviewed Castle's daughter, Terry, who is a lovely lady. And she ended up helping me an awful lot with the promotion of my first book, No Flesh Shall Be Spared. Lovely lady, lovely film, very fun. With qualifications, I would say safe for kids, but it's well worth checking out. And it's available for free on YouTube. After that, on TUBI, again, 1962, Santo versus las Mujeres Vampiro, aka Santo versus the Vampire Women. This is a luchador Santo film. The first of these was called Ladrón de Cadáveres, aka The Body Snatcher, from 1957. I'm going to get to that at some point on one of these episodes. We're going to talk about that. This is about a professor who recruits a professional wrestler to protect his daughter from vampires who are intent on kidnapping and marrying her to the devil. It is directed by Alfonso Cuarón Blake, stars Antonio Orellano and Fernando Osis. What can I tell you? I love the Santo films. At one point, he became more than a Mexican wrestler in the films. He became almost like a James Bondian character, but you can kind of grab the Santo films at random once you kind of adjust for what you know you're going to get. But yeah, great stuff. Good time. A couple of them, I want to say Versus the Vampire Women was made fun of on Mystery Science Theater, but don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure though. Great stuff. It is its own kind of subgenre, and well worth checking out. Someone asked about story time this week. I'm going to give you one. This story time comes from October 23rd, 2011. We were doing ZombieCon in Seattle, and the Boondock Saints were there. I spoke in a previous episode about Sean Patrick Flannery and something that happened at a panel called Fighting the Living Dead. This was a thing that was billed as Drinking with the Boondock Saints. It was about 300 or 400 people in the audience. There was a no-host bar, and it was me, Sean Smithson, Norman Reedus, and Sean Patrick Flannery. There was a lot of drinking going on. It was weird from the get-go. There was a buzz in the air. At one point, a girl in the audience, before we got started, a girl in the audience came up with this baggie full of what looked like chicken meat. And she was telling Norman that, hey, I brought you something. And turns out it was squirrel meat that she had, I guess, caught and cooked, and I don't know. But she had this bag of squirrel meat, and she gave it to him. And I pulled him aside. Are you going to eat any of that? And he's like, hell no. Of course I'm not going to eat some random meat some girl claiming it was squirrel meat gave me out of the audience. As the night started to progress and people started to drink, a guy was there dressed as Jesus. And the next thing I know, I look over my shoulder, and the guy dressed as Jesus is on his knees in front of Norman Reedus, who's giving him a piece of this squirrel meat, like some weird communion rite. Just too weird. The drinking went on. The stories went on. I phased out for a minute and phased back into Sean Patrick Flannery talking about hearing his grandfather and Meemaw in the next room having sex. Just a bizarre night that you can see a good portion of if you go to my website under the video section. There will be a couple of videos from that night. One is an interview with Sam Trammell. There's the George Romero interview that you can get on my YouTube channel. But there's like 10 parts of this Boondock Saints thing that you can go through, and you can get an idea of just how weird and wild it was. Yeah, it was unlike any other panel I've ever done. Controlled chaos is a good word for it. We seem to be those guys stock and trade. Good stuff. Go check it out. Again, on my tomcarnell.com under videos. Let's go through books. I got a pile of them here to show you. I just finished this, Robert McCammon's Boy's Life. As I said before, I liked it. It was pitched to me as a supernatural horror story that I never got. It had a lot of different things. It's literally a boy's life. Pretty safe for kids or young boys, young girls. It's really well written. But I was disappointed because, again, it was pitched to me as one thing and then it ended up being another. After that, I'm going to recommend this, Stewart Onan's A Prayer for the Dying. This is a tale of the oldish West. A guy who is not only a lawman, but he's also the town undertaker. And in the midst of this, a plague breaks out I forget, was it Scarlet Fever? Something like that. And it just tells about how it starts to go through the place and people start to die, and it's really subtle, but it's very, very, if you catch it, I almost missed it, but there's a creepy aspect to it that is phenomenal. I love this book. I highly recommend this book. And you should read it. Something else I've mentioned in the past, Robert McKee's story. This is the book if you want to be a storyteller or a filmmaker or a writer or just someone that doesn't want to bore everyone at Thanksgiving dinner. This is the book on storytelling. Yeah, there's Drunken White, elements of style, and all that other stuff. But this is the book that will really help you with putting together a story, what it needs to happen, why I think it illustrates pretty plainly why a lot of modern storytelling fails. But this thing is a Bible. Highly recommended, especially if you work with words and with story. This is awesome. Let's see. Up next, Earl McRauch's novelization of the film Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. I love the Buckaroo Banzai film. It came at a really important time in my life when I first saw it, and back when it first came out. This book is better. This book gives you a ton of background on not only the Hong Kong Railers, but also on the World Crime League and on Buckaroo himself. This is great stuff. Not a lot of people talk about this, but of cinematic novelizations, not only is this a great one, but it's also a great book because, again, it has a depth to it that doesn't really get addressed in the film. I'm going to show you. This is a sort of press book that I got my little mitts on that what was used in the release of the film. Great stuff. Highly recommended. That said, this just came out recently. This is a novelization, air quote novelization, of Buckaroo Banzai against the World Crime League. It's by Earl McRauch. This was going to be the Buckaroo Banzai sequel. This is a weighty tome, and it goes into a lot of depth. Good stuff comes from Dark Horse Press. Thoroughly enjoyed this. If you liked this and the film it came from, this is a must read. So that is books. We are going to now, I'm going to move these aside, so pardon that. We're now going to records. A lot of stuff this week, and it's kind of all over the place. We're going to start with a record from 2025. Sam Freibush, Ari Teitel, and Adam Deitch. It's called Another Side of Town. Another Side of Sound. Freibush is a New Orleans keyboardist. Teitel is a New Orleans-based guitarist. And Adam Deitch is a Denver, Colorado-based producer and drummer. This is very, very funky, very, very cool. Everyone's playing at the height of their abilities. Not a lot of downtime being executed here. It's very much like things like Lucas de Mulder and the Polyrhythmics, if we're familiar with those. This is good stuff. I put it on and immediately was like, oh yeah, this is great, and I wanted to share it with y'all. So check that out. You can again go to the link and you can go to a playlist that'll have the entire record that you can listen to. Following that, also from 2025, this is Sai Cubed, S-A-I with a 3. It's called Six Dimensional Space. It's a concept. He's a conceptual ambient musician from London. This record blends experimental and abstract sonic elements with electronic music, Eastern culture, and Western philosophy and mythology. This is very much like things like Tangerine Dream, Kataro, Patrick O'Hearn, the stuff he did for private music back in the 80s, all of the ambient kind of things he's doing. This is great stuff. I don't even remember how this came across my desk. I think I put it on because the cover was kind of cool, which usually works. Two quick things about it. If the cover is really cool and has a certain aspect of like space and that kind of a thing, I'm in. Also, if I see, oddly, if that the drummer is Italian, buy it. You know it's going to be good. But this six-dimensional space, really, really great. Really, very, very fun, very chill, very sort of, you can put it on late at night. You can put it on early in the morning. It's good stuff. Also from 2025, Sound Tribe Sector 9, or STS9. The record's called Human Dream. The artist is AKA Alana Rockland. She's from Georgia. This is upbeat electronic music with overtones of guitar. Very cool, very funky. It reminded me of Lotus and also of Floating Points. It's good stuff. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I have a habit of throwing things into a hopper that I want to share with you. And this one, much like the previous two, went right in. Didn't even think about it. Let's see, following that, the 1982 self-titled record by a band called Osiris. Be careful, there's about 2 or 3 different bands called Osiris. This is the prog rock band. They're from Manama, Bahrain, and they sound very much like prog rock. The names that came to mind immediately were the German band Eloy, the German band Novalis, the German band Grobschnitt, and Camel and Genesis. Great stuff. Again, musicians working at the top of their game. Good things. You don't hear a lot of people talking about this record, but they should. Let's see. After that, 2020, Misha Paniloff. The record's called Days of Echoes. Uplifting, joyous, cross-pollinated, spiritual, kraut, drone, ambient mood music. Calm, mellow, peaceful, lush, spiritual, instrumental, hypnotic. Reminded me of things like Shadowfax, but it had a distinct 70s soundtrack vibe that was reminiscent of a lot of Italian film composers from the 70s. Good stuff. He has a lot of records, and from what I can tell, you can kind of grab blind. Misha Paniloff. I want to make that distinction. It's good stuff, and well worth checking out. Let's see. We're rocking right along. 2004, the band is called Magic Sound Fabric. The record is called Freedom Star. It's a blend of chilled out ambient grooves, ethereal landscapes, and cosmic melodies. It has been described as hallucinogenic and relaxingly down-tempo, dub-influenced, that's well realized and has an atmospheric listening vibe to it. Again, reminded me of Patrick O'Hearn. It also reminded me of the violinist Jerry Goodman, who not only played for Mahavishnu Orchestra, but also worked with private music. Had a great record called On the Future of Aviation that I also am going to add. You could want to check that out. It's good stuff. Again, kind of a surprise. I forget how it came across my desk. I do a lot of diving into videos of people talking about records, and anytime something sounds interesting or they play a needle drop, I'll scribble it down, and I think that's how that came about. Let's see. 2012, Michael Menart. The album is called Even If It Isn't Alright. He's a Polish-born American keyboardist. Bluesy vocals, chainsaw bass, flutes, and epic violins pieced together like a film score. Between the choppy effects and unconventional instruments, the listener is constantly engaged. He is careful not to overuse the voice, the vocals and samples, but the music is chill and not in your face, as opposed to other things that can be that way. 27 songs of hip-hop tempo, soul sampling, funk-filled glitch hop was something I pulled from one of the press releases. Again, don't know how that came across my desk. This one might have been because on the first page of Spotify, they'll give you recommendations. Heed those, because they're sort of governed by the things that you click on already. So they lean more into your taste. I have found great stuff that way. Very, very cool. Next up, 2025, the Nankai Trio. The record is called Antarctica. I'm seeing this recommended across the board. They were praising it over on Sea of Tranquility. I think they talked about it on, Scott talked about it on the Prog Corner. I just keep hearing people talking about it. It's highly technical jazz fusion. Reminded me of things like the Mahavishnu Orchestra and King Crimson. The drummer on this is insane. He reminded me of the drummer from Ardia Mysteri, the Italian prog rock band. But boy, and the guitarists are very similar to things like Robert Fripp and Billy Cobham era Tommy Bolin. This is top drawer stuff. It made the #1 record of 2025 lists just again and again and again and again. Good stuff. They're from Japan, and boy, yeah. This one you want to wear a helmet for. Yeah, I was blown away by this. Let's see, just a couple more. 1958, a guy named Tak, T-A-K, Shindo. The record's called Maganga, The Primitive Sounds of Tak Shinto. He was a recording artist that's also a Japanese music authority. This is like things like Martin Denny and Robert Drasnin, who I talked about here on the show. It's like exotica blending Afro-Cuban rhythms, tribal chants, and sample animal sounds. There's like birds chirping in the back, but very, very cool. A lot of marimba, a lot of vibes, a lot of just great stuff. I put it on a lot when I'm trying. I want to listen to something, but I don't want to listen to something. Yeah, that's good stuff. I don't know. As I recall, I only saw a couple of records by this guy, but the one under the heading that's like the best liked were all from this record. And finally, 2025, the band is called Hoof Foot. It's one word. The record is called Phantom Limb. They are a Swedish instrumental group. Think prog rock, krautrock, jazz rock, that kind of thing. This music could have easily come from the Canterbury scene in the 70s, where a lot of bands like Can came from. And yeah, this is good stuff. Reminded me of Tom Penguin and Andre Drag, who I also talked about on this show. Very good stuff, very cool, well worth checking out. And if you go, again, down into the description, there's a playlist that you can just kind of buzz through and see if it's something that might float your boat. And that's going to kind of do it for a Monday. I'll be back on Wednesday. Please like and comment and share and all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to grow the channel, and the only way I could do that is with your help. Tell a friend, as they used to say. And now for the hidden webpage. I've talked about this before, but if you go to my website, tomcarnell.com/KMRE, there are 200 hours or so of a radio show I did here in my hometown. Used to air it Friday night at midnight. It too was called Carnal Knowledge and had variety of things like audio clips from movies and from speeches and from interviews mixed with just a wide array of music. Anything I thought was cool and kind of out of the ordinary. I mean, the thing that comes to mind is like Sammy Davis Jr. singing the theme to My Mother the Car, and it is ripping. So yeah, go check that out. If you're over in Amazon and you're looking for something to read, check out my books. They're all on my author page. Or you can go to my website at tomcarnell.com. There's a page for every one of those. And finally, last plug of the show, check out my new book, Monolith Records. It's not anything like I've written before. It's not a horror-based thing. This is a nostalgic kind of romantic comedy set in 1985 of a guy that goes to work for a giant record store, think like Tower Records. And how the experience not only is indicative of the music of the time, but also how it changes him and how he meets a girl. And that's going to do it. Again, I thank you so much for those that listen on the reg. Again, share and comment if you can. Subscribe. That's the best way. I do these shows every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then periodically I'll drop in, like I'm planning to go to a bookstore later today, and I may take my video along with me, just to show you what's kind of happening in these old hole-in-the-wall video places. So that's going to do it. Everyone take care, and we'll see you on Wednesday.